All right, guys, welcome back. This is section 2 of our latest chapter, and we are going to talk about prostitution. Prostitution has become a very, very kind of big deal on the internet. A lot of prostitutes really like it because it allows them a lot more control over their career than they had prior to the invention of the internet. But essentially, there are three kinds of prostitutes that really exist in the modern world. The first are the streetwalkers. These are the ones, even within the pornography community or the prostitution community, that are seen as kind of lesser. They have a reputation as being of lower quality. But these are the women who are on the street corner, flagging down cars. If you ever watch the show Cops, these are the ones they do the stings with. Kind of one step up from that are the prostitutes who work at businesses. A lot of them are massage parlors, or in the places where it's legal, actual brothels, where you go to a place and it's a pornography or a prostitution specific business. In the United States, in most of the United States, that is illegal. But they still exist. So sometimes there will be kind of a front that will it'll pretend to be a hair cutting salon or a nail salon or a massage parlor or whatever. But if you know that it's really a front for prostitution, you can go in and say, yes, I would like certain services, and they will take you into the back, and that's where the prostitution happens. And then kind of at the top, the most expensive, the ones with the best kind of reputation, are the escorts. And these are the ones that kind of come to you. You call them, you negotiate a rate, and then they come to your house or your apartment, or you meet them at a hotel or somewhere in public. And these are the ones that have very seriously moved to the internet since the rise of the internet. Prior to the internet, they would advertise in newspapers using coded language, or they would advertise in magazines or the yellow pages, again, using kind of this coded language. They would never say sex. They would never say escort. They would never say prostitute. They would say, use kind of that dog whistle where they say certain words, and if you don't know what those mean, they sound normal. But if you do know what those mean, you can translate them. And these are the ones that are self-employed. So streetwalkers usually have a pimp or some man that takes a lot of the money and directs things and uses them for his benefit. Businesses, obviously, you have to have a madam or somebody who runs that business that a lot of your money goes to. But the escorts can be self-employed. They can advertise for themselves. They can make their own schedules. They can, do essentially as they like, charge their own prices, advertise as they wish, all those things. So the internet has been a very large benefit to these escorts. So the other end of prostitution on the internet is the men, and it's usually men, although not always, the men who utilize these prostitutes. Now, the derogatory term for these men is Johns or tricks. They would not, most of these men would not call themselves that. They would call themselves, consumers or enthusiasts or whatever. But that is kind of the name that many have given to these men, even if it is derogatory. And they have their own online communities. So these men who solicit prostitutes will get together and they will talk about prostitutes. They will talk about who they like, who they don't like. Hey, I'm going to be in Tampa next week. Is there somebody I can go out and pay for sex with? And somebody else would be like, oh yeah, I live in Tampa. This person is great, and blah, blah, blah. And they feel safe in this area because they're with other people like them. They don't have to fear being ostracized or ridiculed or shamed or whatever, and they can discuss these things that most of us would never talk about amongst people who also do and feel and think the same way, and thus they're more comfortable there. Okay. Some of the things they talk about are prostitutes. They talk about mileage, which means essentially, are they fresh and young and still kind of look sweet and innocent, or have they been doing it for a very long time and they're kind of grizzled old, like a war veteran kind of thing. So that is one measure of kind of the quality of the prostitutes as they see it. Another thing they talk about is GFE, or the girlfriend experience, i.e., is this person just for sex? Is it very business-like transaction, or can you kind of use them as, if there's a big party, you can have them escort you to the party. Will they treat you like a boyfriend or a lover rather than just a client, that kind of thing. And then, of course, they have a whole system of reviews, right? So there will be, Jane Smith, escort, here's her phone number, blah, blah, blah. And then guys will be able to give her reviews, 5 stars, really great. She was doing all this fun stuff. Or 1 star, she didn't want to do this, and her prices were too expensive, and blah, blah. But just like, eBay or Airbnb or, any one of those other places that have reviews, there are actually now review sites specifically for prostitutes, which, that's life in the 21st century, I guess. When it comes to internet pornography, there's a lot of different laws and stuff that come in. One of the more important ones was the Truth in Domain Names Act of 2003. There were a lot of domains of internet, titles, like google.com is a domain. There were a lot of domain names that were very close to or very similar to major websites, but if you mistyped them or did something wrong, it would take you to a pornography website. And so this law made that illegal. It couldn't be very close to a major website's name with only slight differences. And 2 examples of that are Disneyland.com, which is Disneyland but with the N and the S flipped, was a porn site. So kids would try to go to Disneyland.com, and if they mistyped it in that way, boom, porn site, which I would hope you would all see as problematic for very obvious reasons. Another one was whitehouse.com. That was a porn site for a long time. And, the real White House website is whitehouse.gov. So whitehouse.com, easy mistake to make. You type in .com instead of .gov. And boom, you're at a porn site, which is, obviously, again, problematic. So neither of these 2 websites still exist, thankfully, thanks in part to this Truth in Domain Names Act. But they do still exist in some places. For instance, Google with 3 O's is taken. I don't know if it's a porn site, but I know it's taken. Google with 4 O's, Google with 5 O's. In fact, last I looked, Google, but misspelled with 64 O's, all the way from 3 all the way up to 64 O's, was taken as registered websites. Revenge porn in the USA, there is no federal law against revenge porn. In fact, there's only something like, as of the time I'm making this video, something like 30 different states that have criminalized revenge porn. Not all of them have, but France, Canada, the UK, India, and Israel, and most Western countries, most industrialized countries, most kind of first world countries have made that illegal. So USA, get off your butts. And then the UK's Criminal Justice and Immigration Act of 2008 criminalizes extreme pornography. Now, what counts as extreme pornography? Well, that's a little bit up in the air. But it does include things like, snuff porn, which is porn about death, and, major bodily harm, extreme in the kind of medical sense, i.e. you're permanently injuring someone to make this pornography. But there are two things that are kind of on the rise. The first is age verification services. So, as stated earlier in the previous section, it is illegal for anybody under 18 to view pornography in the United States. In some other countries it's 16, but they need some way to verify that. So a lot of porn sites, in the early part of the 21st century, it was just kind of, are you 18? Yes or no? Click, and you would click one or the other, but there was no enforcement behind that. Obviously, if you were 17, it was just as easy for you to click yes as if you were 25. But they now have some porn sites using age verification services where they have some method of determining whether you're actually over 18. Sometimes you have to take a picture of your driver's license and send it to them, or give them a credit card number or something that kind of verifies that you're older than 18. And then there's a lot of push to create the .xxx domains, right? So right now, domains usually end in .com or .gov or .edu or .org, right? Those are all kind of, and you can tell a little bit about a website based on what that domain extension is. So if it's .gov, obviously it's a government website. If it's .edu, obviously it's some kind of university or educational website. If it's .org, usually it's like a charity or some kind of other beneficial organization. If it's .com, it's a company. So they're trying to create and normalize a .xxx domain so that pornography can kind of make it very obvious that this website is pornography, and thus parents can block all .xxx websites from their home network, and that way their kids can't access those pornographic websites from home. There's been some pushback on that. Obviously not all pornographic websites have moved to the .xxx domain. In fact, there's some estimates that say most of the websites that have registered whatever .xxx are legitimate websites, legitimate companies buying up that domain name so nobody else uses it for a porn site. So like, Google.com bought Google.xxx so that nobody else would buy Google.xxx and create a porn website using Google's name, right? So anyway, that is the end of our chapter on pornography. I will see you next time.